You're listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast, the official podcast of jaysjournal.com and fansided.com. We are the official ballroom chat for everything Toronto Blue Jays baseball, from game highlights to rumors and all the stuff in between. Here's your host, Craig Borden, with co-hosts Jason Lyons and Liz McGuire. Now let's talk some Toronto Blue Jays baseball.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a full house here on the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. I am your host, Craig Borden, and we're just going to go around the horn to start things off here. Liz McGuire, how the heck are you?
I'm really good.
Powder Blues.
I am. It's a special night tonight on the Jay Bird Watching Podcast where we honor a past Blue Jay and one of my favorites, Stieb. So I'm rocking this powder blue is so hot. They made it. I'm sure they made it out of like some kind of vinyl. I don't think it's flammable, but the old jerseys were really, really hot. But yeah, I'm awesome. Jays are still doing well. We had a good game last night, and I don't know, I'm pumped.
Perfect. Jason Lyons, buddy, how's the West Coast treating you?
You know what? It's another beautiful day in Vancouver. The Vancouver Canadians are in a bit of a tailspin there, but back-to-back walk-offs for Arjun, which is real good, or back-to-back homers at least, one walk-off. It's a good day to be a Jays fan. It's funny. I bought a new car today. Shout out to Journey Volkswagen. Bought an electric car. So the hilarious thing was, I said to my wife, I'm going to take my Birkenstocks off and go pick up our electric car today. And she said, I would have never thought I've ever heard you say that ever in your whole life. So people can change. But as I was standing there, two of the people in the dealership just started talking about the Jays out of nowhere. And that does not happen in Vancouver. They are now starting to really dominate the sports news out here. It's nice to see them talking about some different things on Sportsnet, some things that are drawing people into Clement and some of these other guys. And so, yeah, like I said, it's a good time to be a Jays fan, and super fun.
All I heard is I got to send you some more business cards. Beer coasters, and get you all set back up. Good times. So with us, the illustrious fans of all things Dave Stieb from Dave Stieb Today, we have Len and Blake. Fellas, how the heck are you? First time. Love having you here. Blake.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, Craig, Liz, Jason. It was fantastic. I got to meet Liz at the Walk-Off podcast, Scott Belford's Comedy Bar events, and we agreed that it would be a scintillating hour to talk nothing but Dave Stieb. So here we are.
Boom. So, Len, your turn, I guess.
Jason, Blake and I were living in Vancouver during the 93 World Series, and it was it was your birthday when Carter hit the walk-off, and it's weird watching a World Series from a team that you've been cheering for your entire sort of your life, I guess. And then to watch them win the championship when you've been living in town with them for the first 15 years or so of their existence, and then you're not there for the second championship. It was eerie for us. I don't know what it would be like for you if the team goes playoff bound and then starts doing things there. But it was strange for us being out there watching that happen. You sort of felt like you could, start watching a game in the third inning. In fact, I think we went shopping. Blake and I will probably get to this at some point, but we've been best friends since we were about 12. And we were living out in Vancouver because we were going to become famous for whatever reason. And I think we were out shopping when was it the 15-14 game we were out shopping, or was it Henkin's win? One of the games in Philly. It wasn't the 2-0 game with Schilling pitching over Guzman, but it was one of those other two. We were out shopping and just missing a lot of it. So it was weird. But anyway, we watched that one, and that's our Vancouver story, basically. I haven't been back since. So
it was so different. It was so different than 92 because we were in Toronto and we were a bit downtrodden because Stieb had not been pitching in the World Series. But then in the later innings of that last game, we were like, no, come on, he's going to get a ring out of this. This is our last thing. So we watched the end of it. And then, I was living at Yonge and Davisville at the time. So I put on my Stieb shirt backwards and walked all the way down the median line from Yonge and Davisville while everyone was hooting and hollering, all the traffic, all the way down to the waterfront, just, high-fiving everybody. So, yeah, totally different vibe than 93 when I was halfway in the washroom talking to a girl that I wanted to romance back in Toronto with my eye watching the game, the thing. So, yeah, completely different scenario.
Yeah, very
That's
true.
Great.
So messing that game a little bit. I feel like I'm a little hot in here. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you guys would say that because, I mean, I feel like there is a decent chance. I mean, the Jays have a very decent chance of getting to and possibly winning the World Series this year. It's a reality. And, you know, I remember the last time it was a little different. It was just so long ago. There was no social media. There was no nothing. So anything that was watched was on TV. And I still remember watching I was actually playing hockey in a spring league while the game was going on in a bar. And we kept stopping. Like anytime there was a stop play, everyone would go over to the glass to try and see what the score was in the game. And then we finished. We took off our skates. This is no joke. 2 full teams of adult men did this. Took our skates off, grabbed beers from the room, went up to the bar, and watched it in our gear. I still remember getting a pitcher of beer dumped all through my gear, which wasn't the first time that happened. But there was a fever back then that I'm not sure would happen now. Like, that's one of the really fickle things about the West Coast. I mean, baseball fans would be all over it. Canadians fans would be all over it. But I think for the most part, unfortunately, the West Coast's disdain for the Maple Leafs takes a lot of, and I wish it wasn't. I wish it wasn't the truth, but it is. And you know, so
I felt that up there.
There'll be excitement in the playoffs, but it's not a fever pitch. Like, I would love to be in Toronto for it just to see it. Having been in Boston for Game 2 of the World Series when they won in 2004, just like an incredible city to be in when the World Series is going on. I watched the game at Fenway. It was unbelievable. But, you know, I don't think the fanfare will happen out here.
I don't know how far back your association with Vancouver goes, but we were living there in '93, but my family does a lot of vacationing in New England. So I've been in Boston for several sort of keystone or keynote kind of moments. And one of them was actually the 2011 Game 7 for the Cup Finals. So we were in this unusual position. We were staying in the Lenox Hotel, my family and I, and my brother and I are looking out the window, and we're seeing people down in Boylston, and so the Bruins won 4-0, and that's when all the riots are happening out in Vancouver. And we just thought, I guess we should head down and sort of join it. So we were just walking along the street, we didn't even care. We're just high-fiving people and just sort of living in the moment because it was pretty intense. And I do remember in '92, I was at journalism school that year, which is a story unto itself, but I think I'll probably spare everybody the details today. But I remember thinking specifically at one point after just walking by, I think it was Leichtman's, which is one of those magazine stores that no longer exists. And just looking at like USA Today and a couple of other American papers that they had. And I thought to myself, my God, I mean, I'm actually walking around, living and breathing in a city in which a major championship is being contested right now. And that was such a cool feeling. And that was '92. So, you know, we'd gone through, Blake and I, given our relative ages, I mean, we'd gone through the whole thing from just like expansion era baby fat to like an elite team for the better part of, well, basically that was its 10th year, I guess, winning at least 86 games. And so when they finally made it all the way to the World Series, it was, you're sort of just drunk with possibility. So, you know, I'm older now and a little less swayed by sort of big social moments than I might have been at a younger age. But I mean, I can just see kind of like with 15 and 16 and how it really turned a whole sort of sporting nation onto the Jays. I can see that this team, which seems to be built a little differently from the decent teams of 22-3, that, you know, if it ends up taking off and they actually win something, they could have the country maybe in the palm of their hand.
They get out of the first round. If they get out of the first round and get into the second round, the Jurassic Parks and that kind of stuff will be a reality in Toronto, and it'll be awesome. It's fun to watch. It's fun to sort of be a part of it, no matter what you're doing. But it's pretty cool.
The sad reality. Go ahead.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but like MLB, who doesn't give a shit about us at all. They don't care about the Blue Jays. I saw that they were like pumping up on the weekend. It was like Dodgers, Blue Jays. Could this be a World Series preview? Like they were pumping it all over social media, and I was kind of like, maybe, but go away. Get out of here. Get out of here.
Maybe it's a 51st state thing or something. We're just like fated to actually go and mess with people. Hey, everyone's disappearing. Hi guys.
Well, the joke is
like
that
it makes me think of the '85 playoff.
Yeah, I was going to say the joke is that they didn't put a Blue Jays game on a national broadcast in the States until 1985. And we were actually at the first playoff game in 1985 that Stieb pitched 8 innings and we won, right? And that was an electric atmosphere for sure. But yeah, that's, you know, without ratings contributing to their ratings, afterthought.
Yeah.
Just somebody was joking about how it's the championship everyone's waiting for, Seattle, Milwaukee. Like,
Yeah,
because you can be like that, right? You can sort of like hope for like really small market teams just to sort of mess with things. That's sort of more of the way I feel about like hockey, because I don't like Bettman, but with baseball, you just want good baseball. But I mean, for it to be Seattle or Milwaukee or Toronto or one of those teams that isn't Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles would be pretty funny. When you consider the money that's being lavished on some of those organizations. And actually, historically, I like the Dodgers, but I wouldn't mind if they didn't make every World Series.
Same.
There is that.
They probably got what they wanted last year with the New York Dodgers World Series. Like, no, this time is no, get out of here. You made your money.
I would
we all basically
be infinitely loving the fact, because my National League team has always been the Milwaukee Brewers, because there's something about my Rochester, Buffalo area of New York State here that I'm in that a baseball team that tailgates their baseball games just screams fun to me. And that was one of my favorite stadiums outside of obviously my favorite venue in the world being the Sky Dome. And going from there, it was just such a beautiful ballpark. It's the only place that wasn't playing music constantly through the ballpark. They were at the time, obviously, God rest his soul, but Bob Uecker is playing through the loudspeaker during the game, the whole game. And there was something just, it felt like home here to me in Western New York, or being at the Sky Dome and going from there. And it was just really fun. I loved it. I would infinitely love the fact that it was the Blue Jays beating the Milwaukee Brewers.
I love it
in the World Series.
Living
it just screams to me fun baseball.
Yeah, they've got a great thing. I love the new Brewers Stadium. I was there a couple of years ago. I mean, that's the perfect way to do a dome stadium where you have so much natural light pouring in, unlike the concrete convertible over my right shoulder here. But I also got to see the old Milwaukee Stadium because my dad was trying to date a girl in Chicago in the very early 80s. So we would drive out that way.
Those are a trend, Blake.
Yeah, Blake's baseball stories.
So yeah, both parks were cool. But yeah, the new Milwaukee Stadium is really sweet as a stadium, and good for them. I mean, I think they were talking on the Fan this morning that they have like one player who has an OPS of over 800, and it's like 801. And everyone else, even Jackson Chirinos, is all like 750.
Yeah.
So
wow,
it'll be fascinating to see. See, my big interest with the Jays this year and a team like Milwaukee is this going to hold up in in playoff rounds? Is it going to hold up against the best? Even though Toronto has this great record against above 500 teams, is all of this magic going to hold up when it's just mano-a-mano, best of 7, and you have to be your best at all times? We'll see.
Yeah, it's like that really good Orioles team that won so much in the regular season and then just sort of collapsed.
Yeah,
that was tragic.
Beautiful. The Blue Jays and the Brewers are built eerily similar, but we are out, on the upper part of the offense piece, to your exact point. But pitching, Milwaukee is 100% what's going on. When you're talking that Freddie Peralta is not their best guy, and you look at their, his, stats for this season, I'd be happy with that being on the back of my baseball card, just saying. But it's very interesting to see how I love the fact that it isn't just the Dodgers. It isn't just the Yankees this year. The wealth is equally distributed, I feel like, in Major League Baseball. And even to this point where we all currently stand, Blue Jays are sitting pretty at the first team in the American League to hit 70 wins this year. Yep. But we have a lot of people nipping at our heels, and God willing, we'll be in the playoffs and winning the World Series. But
Craig,
there's a long run to go. Go ahead.
But Craig, baseball needs a salary cap. It really does. Like, look at all those dynasties winning 4, championships in a row. Look at how the disparity between all it needs. Rob Manfred is right. It needs a salary cap.
I am in the Bryce Harper camp of get the hell out of my locker room.
That would have been great to have been there when he had done that.
Yeah. We actually, the three of us talked about that a couple weeks ago, but seeing you brought it up, I would love to hear your guys' opinions, because they still have not visited the Blue Jays with Manfred's little entourage to talk, and I'm still thinking of what that conversation with Max Scherzer specifically looks like.
Yeah, he's aching for it.
I just don't know if one side if the owner side is willing to shut it all down, given, I mean, think about how much money from just betting alone in the last couple of years, they've risen the stakes. So player salaries have, climbed to whatever degree.
Ooh.
The amount of money they've made off betting, are they willing just to torch that whole thing, to go pull a Trump and just say, no, we're going to like literally take you all to the woodshed just because we can, and because, it's never enough and we need more? Would they literally torch the brand of baseball, which is already, at the sort of the back end of the major brands, especially with the young people? So that would be fascinating.
I would love where the knife turn would go on that whole thing. Blue Jays, let's say, just pour salt on the wound of the orange tangerine fellow that's unfortunately running the country I live in. But Blue Jays win the World Series this year. Then there's no season next year because they all go lockout or strike. So that would mean we're still the champions. Here's the finger, guy.
It's like 93. It's like 93-4. We were still the champions going into the 95 season because Montreal should have been.
That's right. I remember Joe Carter being on the ESPYs, and he was like, that means we're the 3-time champions now. Like, okay. So if baseball can shut down every time the Jays do it.
Yep.
No,
I'm
not that
those in trends,
but I pretty much agree with what you guys are saying.
Yeah. So on the salary cap front, our buddy Michael Borland, that's always on the show here and everything, always having fun with us and goofing around in the chat. Thanks for being in the cheap seats, bud. Forget the cap. What's your guys' feelings on putting a floor in?
Yeah.
And, all teams have to spend at least this much money.
Well, they're billionaires now, right? I mean, there's no excuse. It wasn't like 30 years ago when this was the one thing that you owned potentially, right? So they're all billionaires at this point. They can all afford it. They just, some teams like Pittsburgh, choose not to. We look at Paul Skeens and we're like, wow, this is like living Dave Stieb over again in the early 80s, right? With the no wins, but this beautiful pitching performances time after time. And it just buttresses our case that Steve should be in the Hall of Fame, because Skeens, if God forbid, if he's stuck there from year 7 onwards, he's going to barely
still gonna make it.
Like DeGrom, he's going to have like 100 wins, and they're going to put him in the Hall of Fame. Well, why wouldn't you put Dave Stieb in the? You could put Jeff Hoffman in the Hall of Fame for getting a win in that performance on Sunday.
Get out of here.
Yeah. That's why we sit there. Yeah. We just look at pitcher wins and go, well, Hoffman got a win for that 5-walk performance, but they're going to hold back Steve from the Hall of Fame because he didn't get enough wins. No, thank you.
Ridiculous. So, but on that note, I guess you really want to go to Dave Steve.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah, probably.
So obviously you guys grew up watching him. I want Len, let's go first, as I kind of cut you off there. How did you fall in love with Dave Stieb initially? Or was it a combined effort across the both of you?
Well, I went to a few games in 77. Dad took me, and I went to a few more in 78. And I think for a lot of people, and Stephen Brunt writes about this in his book, the one that came out in 96, which pretty much covered the first 20 years of the Jays. And that's called Diamond Dreams, for anybody who wants to try to find it somewhere. It's a wonderful read. And what he talked about was that there was, by the time the third year came in, there'd been this plan in place between Peter Bavasi, who was ostensibly the team's GM at the time, which was they understood that by the third year it'd be a pretty crummy team. And that whole sort of new car smell that kind of fired the enthusiasm through 77 and 78 would be starting to abate. And it's true. You look at the attendance numbers and they're still solid. This was the era of some American League teams and a couple of nationals for that matter, playing to 10,000 people a game. And so you'd be looking at season-ending attendance numbers of 80,000, 90,000. But the Jays, I think, were 1-7 in the first year and then about 1-5 in the second. And now they're down to 1-4 or 1-3 in the third. And I think what was happening to a lot of people was just the enthusiasm was dipping. And, you've got all the sort of the flotsam and jetsam that you picked up off of the expansion draft. And these guys, a lot of them, there's a reason why they were unprotected. They just weren't that good. There were a few gems that they found, people like Jim Clancy, rest in peace, Ernie Witt, Garth Orge, and these were guys who were still part of the team basically a decade later. But what you had at that stage was just this kind of flyer or this faith thing that these teams would eventually get better. But nobody really felt that yet. And so although I went to a handful of games in both 77 and 8, I only went to one in 79. And it just so happened to be July 9th, 1979. It was Dave Stieb's first game in Toronto. It was a 4-hit complete game 7-1 win, in which the only hits, coincidentally, were either off of Hall of Famers, Yount and Molitor. or Buck Martinez, who was the catcher for the Brewers that night. And my hero at the time, and I'm sure it's a name that most of us are familiar with, was Doug Alt, because he'd hit the 2 home runs in the first game. And like a lot of impressionable kids, he'd been my guy. But by 79, he's down in Syracuse. I mean, he's a AAA guy who's probably not going to get back. And he did get back in 80 for a cup of coffee. But I needed somebody to cheer for. And so, you know, the one game I'd seen and the program that I'd taken home, I still have it somewhere, was this new pitcher for the Jays. And the fact that he actually managed to put together a 500 record. And remember, wins were everything back then. You could tell that he must have been better than the average, because he's 8-8 on a team that went 53 and 109. And it was like low-hanging fruit, but I mean, it was the right pick too. So that was it for me. I was just basically getting the exposure to the one game, which happened to be a kick-ass game. And then, you know, the next year he was an all-star pitcher. So he didn't disappoint. He kind of hit the ground running and gave you a lot of reasons to cheer.
Deal. Blake, your turn.
Yeah, I felt that same on UE, right? Where you're just sitting there thinking, oh man, is this just going to keep going in the tank? You were just praying for some name, something that would rise above the American media din, right? So when, for example, when Stieb started the 1983 All-Star game, right? First Blue Jay pitcher, obviously, to start the All-Star game, was their first winning season. That was a huge thing, because we're like, wow, our guy is starting the All-Star game. And then he started it the next year as well. So to have, you know, the first truly established superstar come in was something just like, you know, a rocket ship that you just grabbed onto the tail and ran with. And he was such an interesting figure because, you know, when he was drafted in June of 1978 by the Jays, you know, he had that year, he was in college. He gets to be the an All-American playing center field for his university team, setting their home run record. He bats that year .394. So he's their MVP. And they just brought him in for like 17 or so innings to pitch, because they're like, this guy's got the strongest arm and we've got some injuries, etc. And then the Blue Jays scouts, who was it, Maddock and Lamacchia, see him in one of those games where they call him, or they bring him in from center field to play the bullpen, to pitch. And all of a sudden, you know, from getting drafted in June of 78 to showing up in Dunedin, still being offered the chance to hit. Like, he shows up in late July of 1978. He doesn't actually make his first start and his first pitching appearance until August 10th of 78. So they're letting him play center field beside Jesse Barfield in right field. But then he's pitching in MLB by June of 79. Yeah. So, I mean, that's unprecedented. There's awesome. To go from not being a pitcher at all to all of a sudden a year later doing it in the MLB, that was fantastic. But then just his personality, like, he's a SoCal kid who doesn't have that Roy Halladay pitcher mentality, right? He's a perfectionist. He's obsessive. He's playing on like one of the worst teams ever. So they're making errors all around them. The bullpen stinks. And now he's got to go from trusting himself as a player to trusting, you know, 8 other people behind him for his success on a team that looks like it's going nowhere in the frozen hinterland of downtown Canada. And so just this Shakespearean drama just began to unfold of this superstar talent, but this figure who was the first real figure in the team's history to be like, no, losing sucks, guys, and we're not going to tolerate that. We'd had 3 years of, we're just here hanging on. So losing was just what it was expected. But now you got him, you got Alfredo Griffin coming in, but Stieb was the first one to say, this is over. We're either going for it or we're not doing, I'm just going to like rake you guys over the coals. So fascinating just to see that progress. So that was really what drew us in, the talent and just this storyline that was evolving in the early days of the Jays.
Yeah, I think
Jason, it sounds like you had your Shorzy bit going on there, bud.
Yeah, I think that's something that not a lot of the people, like, I mean, certainly a lot of our audience doesn't even know that part of it. Like, I'm sure they've Googled parts of it and they know parts of it, but I mean, to think about, there's certainly been pitchers that have gone the other direction, like they've pitched and then they've gone to the outfield and finished their careers in the outfield, but few and far between are that short of a runway as a pitcher, and then to be one of the more dominant. And then you start to see, the comparisons to his career in some of his seasons with guys like Nolan Ryan and you're like, what? Like,
Yeah,
how's that possible? But
it's wild. And they taught him like the splitter, I think, or slider, a pitch in like an hour, and he was the best one on the team. Like, what? He's like an alien angel, pitching angel, sent down here to throw baseballs quickly.
But not no hitters.
Not no hitters. Well, except that.
Yeah,
They're overrated. They're overrated anyways.
Yeah, the king of one hitters. I believe so he took our buddy Not Gaetti is his brand, as many of our fans know, a friend of the show, is Nepta. Not enough people talk about, and of course one of his main topics of Blue Jays fandom was talking Dave Stieb. And I'm just going to share this link here because it's just fun to put up and talk to here as we got the whole gang together. Just got to get it right. Here we go. So really crazy good numbers when you look at his whole impressive career. Led Major League Baseball with a WAR 2 times. He threw 2,328 innings in the 80s. Career complete games was 103, 30 shutouts. Crazy. And then obviously, Jason, as you pointed out and mentioned, the king of like one hitters. What was the story before he he actually finally threw the no hitter in Cleveland? Didn't he throw only like the game before that in the Sky Dome? It was the last out. The one before that, it was like taken into the 9th inning again. It was like basically 3 games in a row that were one hitters, if I recall correctly.
Yep.
So
that's how, I mean, it's unfortunate for him, but I mean, it's interesting when you look back and I mean, you know, kids of this generation and even into sort of like kids that are in their 30s, they don't understand these numbers. They don't make any sense because I mean, you've got guys getting pulled at 60 pitches now, you know, for arm care and all this other stuff. And I mean, I look back at some of Stieb's and Nolan Ryan's and Fernando Valenzuela and throwing like 110 to 140 pitches multiple times in a week, like not
multiple.
Not in a season, like, you know,
and then maybe throwing a bullpen day in just for the fudge of it, you know, not a big deal.
Crazy.
Len can keep me honest, but I can't remember now. I'm blanking whether it was 80 or 81 where Steve threw 7 complete games in a row, which is remarkable.
That's wild.
Yeah. But to your points, you know, from 79 to 85, you know, he's this electric pitcher who's leading everything in WAR, all the all-star games that he had. He has the down year in 86. His elbow's finally worn out a bit. But then that 89 to 91 period, right? That's when he's throwing all these one hitters. Like that's September 24th, September 30th, 1988. As you said, the back-to-back one hitters, the Manny Lee, you know, giant hop over the head in Cleveland, that old stadium. The next time out, you know, against Traber, just a little flare over McGriff's head, like back-to-back, taking no hitters down to the last batter is insane. And then what is it? The second start in 89, he also throws another one hitter. Then he has the near perfect game in August of 89. And then he throws another one hitter at the end of August in 89. And he's doing these, you know, his fastball doesn't have the same type of movement that it did up to 85, but his pitching ability has just gone off the charts. He doesn't lose anymore. Like he lost some games mainly because, you know, bad bullpen in those early days up to 85 and wasn't getting a lot of runs.
Throw everything, right?
Yeah, but his win-loss percentage from 88 onwards to that peak was amongst the best. So he had these 2 distinct peaks and he was ongoing until that freak injury in May 22nd, 1991 that curtailed and, you know, sent him down the spiral of not pitching in the World Series, et cetera, until he came back in 98. So yeah, some of the metrics he have, they're just unrelatable to what we see today for sure.
Yeah. So I got to go to the cheap seats in here in the comments for a few here because this is just fun that's going on in the chat. So we got the spreadsheet buddy of Not Gaetti in the that does all his stat tracking and everything for us. Wrath of Rock, good to see you. But he actually brought a couple of fun ones into the comments here too. We were talking how good he was in the early 80s. He lost the 83 Cy Young into who he calls Clue Haywood, which was also known as, you know, Pete. So in the midst of that, he never finished in the top 3 for a Cy Young award, and that just is criminal at this point. So, but wild.
But
and to that
point, we agree that there's a lot. Like, I mean, Dave Stieb's probably the top of the heap. But I was listening to a broadcast the other night. Actually, I think it was during the Jays Dodgers game. where they were talking about some of the pitchers that did not ever in their careers get nominated for a Cy Young, like not win.
Nolan Ryan,
not even get nominated. And you're like, after they go through about the first 6 or 7, you're like, this is impossible. And they're just hitting name after name. And you're like, yeah, what is so? I mean,
and then you get to the 2000s, and Rick Porcello won 2. So he's only 2 good years he had in his whole career, but it was every other year for a bit for him. But it's amazing how those kind of things just go and what happens and how things go. But to their point, he was the ace of this team. It wasn't even just the fact that he was the best pitcher. He was the best player on this Blue Jays team in its early days. Real drive behind the 85 and all the other pieces that obviously turn into the Blue Jays establishing a winning culture going into the early 90s. As far as those kind of things go, Liz, obviously that was the part where we got to inherit is what we got as Blue Jays fans and win some stuff, especially in our age group, right around that point. So, thoughts?
Of my thoughts of winning? I mean, I like it. I would like to do more of it. Yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But I think that what to me is just insane is that the longevity of he was around for a while. Dave Stieb was around for a while. So like what, 98?
Yeah, well, that's when he came back, right? He was on that same staff technically with Pat Henkin when he won his.
It's just like you just I don't know. He was I don't know. He was around and here's the thing. I have a question, which I don't understand in hindsight. Why did nobody vote for him? Was it because he was in Canada? Like, what's the gossip there?
Well, I think when you look at Scherzer, right, and we talk about how Scherzer is going now into his 40s, and some of these other players are. There was Dave Stieb taking 5 years off of baseball. Last start was Chicago in '93, and then he comes back in '98 and still an effective pitcher. So you can imagine how many wins he would have racked up during that time, which speaks to your point, Liz, which was we ended up in this weird Bermuda Triangle world of the 1980s where all of a sudden writers were obsessed with wins for pitchers. They didn't know Canada existed. Stieb suffered no fools when it came to the media. And this cosmic coming together of where it's like, we're not going to vote. I mean, the one that the gentleman was referencing, the 1982 loss to Pete Vukovich, like Stieb won one less game. I mean, Len could go on to the numbers and just list out all the numbers that were just so ridiculous that Vukovich got it, but he won one more game, lost a few less. But hey, it was in the 1982. Jays hadn't won squat diddly yet. Again, they weren't on national. How did you see Stieb as a writer? How are they voting for people, but yet it's like nothing, right?
Carrier pigeon. A lot of the highlights were delivered by carrier pigeon back then.
This guy was radio because I'm just across the pond, so I was able to pick up the Toronto radio feed all the time in the summer. So it was just how it was. I didn't see him on TV until probably 88, 89, or the games that when I finally went up with my parents, my dad being a giant Blue Jay and Dave Stieb fan for fantasy baseball.
Good man.
I saw him in 91 when the Dome opened. That was the first time I'd been to a Major League Baseball game at that point in my life, being born in 84. And I was instantly sucked in watching him pitch, that crowd in that brand new ballpark. It was just incredible. So, but yeah, to your point, media not seeing, you don't get it. You don't get the same eyes. It's not like the TV cameras are everywhere like they are today.
And we know that just because of the difficulty we have in trying to source old material. And we'd like to put as much video up as we possibly can. But I mean, a year like 82's, the first of those years where he's got a really good chance at winning a Cy, if you've got just a half sober electorate voting for him. There aren't that many games on tape. What we've found in a lot of our research is you just come across these things that you forgot that you did see as a kid. And one of the most exciting things every spring was when, if it was the Toronto Sun or the Globe or the Star, is that at some point, just as the season was about to get underway, there'd be the weekly TV guy that would come out, and buried somewhere in the sports part of it, they'd have that entire season's list of games. And I mean, so it's not like right now when you've got a couple on Apple TV, but the other 159 or so are basically like available on Rogers. You'd be getting 40 games. I mean, that was it. And so if you've got a 4-man rotation, and some teams are already starting to pivot to 5 at that time, that means just if you just take, by random selection, you might be getting 8 or 10 starts of his on tape, or at least on television. And there's one game, and we were talking to it was Toronto Mike a few weeks ago, and just remembering one game that he pitched out in California, West Coast game, so it's late at night, and the Toronto market actually declined the opportunity to show the game, and a few other markets like Hamilton showed it and so forth, but it's actually written up in the paper, and we included it in one of our tweets. They just that people were kind of surprised, but nonetheless they just figured, no, you know what, it's not worth it to fight for it, and we got to sign a bunch of papers and things. And
wow, did we lose him?
But that's wild though. Like that's wild. But like also that everything's commercialized.
That kind of ties into a comment that, and we made, but
I think we got
everyone
one
disappearing.
Kind of
you get some of the sort of deeper thinkers about baseball, like Bill James and Joe Posnanski and Tom Tango and so forth. And what James would write about on his website, he called it the Dave Stieb era. And in that period, he figured Stieb could have won all 4 from 82 to 85. And indeed, his mathematical outlook would give him all 4 size. We don't necessarily agree that he would have won all 4, although you can make a case that he could have won all 4. But he recalls having a conversation with a KC beat writer near the end of the 82 season, and they're just saying, we both know he's the best pitcher in the league. Are you going to vote for him? And he says, I don't think we're ready to vote for a 17-14 pitcher. But the guy 18-6. Oh, and coincidentally, Blake and I could talk about this till the cows come home, but Vukovic is, we'll talk about like strikeout to walk ratio now these days. Vukovic strikes out 105 that year. He walks 102. I mean, that gets, he's got a 3.34 Cy Young, or at least a 3.34 ERA. So he's obviously also pitching to extraordinarily good luck. But this is just how it was back then. It was a visual thing. And if your name was there on the bottom of the little box score at the end of the day with that W beside it, they didn't really care how you pitched. It's just whether you got the win or not. And on some meta level, that's important. But I mean, the game has changed so much now, which, by the way, is probably those changes are what's sort of forming the crux of the argument we have, which is that he could and should get Hall of Fame consideration. Which is that when we look at all the statistics that are now available, the kinds of things that people overlooked back then because they just hadn't formulated that stuff. They weren't thinking that way. Now it's so much easier to see how somebody who has a poor win-loss record, like a Skeens this year, or like historically a Jake DeGrom or a King Felix at various points and during his prime, that Stieb is basically the progenitor to all of that. And so I mentioned Tom Tango, and I read Tom Tango. So Tom Tango's book sometimes, and he's on this real kick lately about Skeens, and his handle is Tango Tiger. But anyway, so he's been going on about how Skeens is, with a 500 record, might be the thing that finally ends this whole discourse about wins mattering. And there was this one thing where he said basically, I'm trying to think of the exact wording behind it, but it was that Skeens is going to put it to death to it. DeGrom and Hernandez basically were the ones that kind of set the whole ball in motion. And then some other commenter came in and just did. And don't forget, Dave Stieb tilled the soil. Yeah. So you got this lineage of all these pitchers who were kind of pitching to hard luck. And he wasn't the first one. I mean, Nolan Ryan has a wonderful season, and I think it's 87. He's 8-16. But all the metrics show that he's just a really good pitcher that year.
Speaking of somebody that never won a Cy Young award, Nolan Ryan.
Which, by the way, I should pivot. One of the other names that I mention all the time is Joe Posnanski. And Posnanski is the one who wrote a book a few years ago called The Baseball 100. I'm looking at it right now. It's one of the things I was doing just a few minutes ago, calling up this article he wrote about 5 years ago. He does list these 10 pitchers, and this is just a sort of formalizer for all of us, because we're trying to remember some of the great pitchers who haven't won Cy Young among the retirees anyway. And he ranks them, and he says, this is a loose ranking, but basically these are who I figure are the best 10 pitchers to never win a Cy Young. Nolan Ryan, Phil Niekro, Bert Blyleven, who both have WAR above 90, Curt Schilling, who's above 80, Mike Mussina, who's around 80, Louis Tiant, Don Sutton, who is a bit of a compiler, but still a fine pitcher, Stieb, Rick Ruschel, and Andy Pettit. There's some second place finishes in there. There's some fourth place finishes in there, but basically not one of them won. And so what Posnanski did about 5 years ago is he wrote this lengthy article in which he went all the way back to basically post-World War II. And he called them the Cy Stiebs. And he said, I'm going to basically go and re-award the Cy Youngs, or else if I agree, I'm going to just say that it's fine. We'll carry on. But he gave Stieb 3 Cy Youngs, 82, 83, 84, and said he's got a pretty good case for 85 as well. And, again, people who have done these studies, they're finding that they're closing in now. Like there's a lot more agreement between who looks as though from a sabermetric perspective, they were the best pitcher that year, or a top 2 anyway, and those who actually win. You're not getting as many absolute joke awards as you might have had a couple generations ago. So there's a dovetailing now that's happening where you're starting to see the people who should win it, winning it. And that's funny because going forward, and maybe we'll talk about this, when you start looking at the Hall of Fame cases of pitchers who only have 100 wins or 125 wins or what have you, or 250 wins, is you might start using a Cy Young Award as some kind of currency that didn't exist when you're looking at the careers of some of the people who didn't win Cys back in Steve's time. So he was hard done by at the ballot because he never won a Cy Young. I mean, that's an easy thing to hang your hat on. But you go towards, like a modern kind of interpretation, and maybe somebody like Jake DeGrom or Chris Sale, now that he's got one, they're not going to struggle as much at the ballot box when their time comes. I don't know.
Do you guys think that
there's a paradigm shift, basically?
Do you guys think that because there's a lack of awards in Major League Baseball, it does hurt some guys? Like, I mean, hockey's got a whole bunch, they've got the Hart Trophy, they've got the Vezina, they've got all these other, different trophies. And yet baseball has always just remained to have, the trophies that they do have for what they give out. And I mean, there's certainly, there's room for more. If everyone's end all be all is the Hall of Fame, then I mean, some of those things have to matter. But don't you guys think that there should be more defensive awards and more awards around stuff that baseball people understand to be more important sometimes than, the most hits in a year or, whatever the case may be?
Yeah. I mean, considering how generous baseball is with stats interpretation, I mean, people are making like a living off of this. You think they'd have awards to kind of, correlate to it. But yeah, I think so. I think they're missing something there.
And I think Kevin Barker would always say that, you're not going to get people hitting 300 unless you start paying them that way, right? So even the awards now are geared towards those who get those extreme stats, right? You hit the
monster
home run. You hit the home run, right? The 3 true outcomes, right? We lost a generation of people like from my son. My son's 25. So yeah, he was excited when the 2015-16 Jays came up. But in the 2017 onwards era where the games were 3+ hours and there was nothing even happening during those eras. Yeah. I mean, I think Steve's first win was like what, $147 that it took for him to pitch a complete game. Like,
basically a few sub-2-hour games.
It's great. Like the first year they did the clock down at the Dome, whatever that was 3 years ago. I went to one of the games that was done in like 2 hours and 2 minutes.
It was awesome.
It was literally, I used to be able to sit there prior to that, and prepare Steve tweets and things like that between batters or innings. I wouldn't have to look up. Now, if I fast forward through on the TV, right, I fast forward, like, oh crap, I just skipped like 2 pitches. Yeah. So yeah, different time for sure. But yeah, again, if they had a reliever award back then, instead of giving out Cy Youngs to, like Willie Hernandez in '84, there's another win for Steve, right? And that's unfortunate that they didn't divvy some of that. If you had like a Selke award for, best defensive, outfield.
Yeah.
It would change.
You talk about fast games. Roy Halladay was in that same category. My favorite pitcher when he was a Blue Jay for a little bit there was Mark Burley. I loved watching him pitch because he's got the ball through. Yeah. So,
well, you see the struggles with Alek Manoah, right? In 2022, when he would get a great pitch and then he'd wander around the mound for like a minute and he'd be back. And as soon as they hit the pitch clock, interesting, all this is what's happening, whether it was out of shape, whether it was just his routine just didn't allow for that to happen. And now he's still
build it back up.
He's still struggling and he's had to, really reform. We'll see if that has a direct correlation on his career going forward too. So
we'll get to those little Blue Jay news things here at the end of the show, as we obviously do have a live game going on right now, but we're currently losing 1-0 from
spoilers
Yeah, Michael Bush home run. Sorry, guy. It is a baseball show. I got to do something. And so, on that note, I've seen some comments in the cheap seats here that I have actually formed me some fun questions here and some hypotheticals that I want to go around the room and get some fun out of this whole thing. So one of the ones that I'm thinking here, because everybody's talking about Max Scherzer and how well he's been doing with his team. Everybody knows how his mentality is on the mound. Do you think Dave Stieb and Max would be BFFs? I'll let you go first, Blake. Would they be good buddies? Because they both have that same kind of tenaciousness on the mound, and that's kind of why I formed this goofball question in my head.
I think the people that Steve appreciated throughout his career were like the Tom Seavers of the world. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to be a bulldog. I'm going to get it done, but I'm not going to be a Jack Morris. Ooh, look how awesome I am staying in with 150 pitches, giving up 9 runs like I'm Grant Fuhr of the Oilers instead of being Billy Smith. So, yeah, I think that because Scherzer's that kind of guy too, right? He's just dogged, determination. But then when I walk off, I'm out. Don't bother me during the game. So yeah, I think they would have been respected peers of each other for sure. They weren't the showboats. Neither of them were showboats or people who are interested in like a lot of acclaim. For them, it was my job is to not allow people to score runs, not even to win games, just stop people from scoring. That's my job. And once I'm done.
Yeah, I think it's a good comp to current day baseball, to what you got with Dave Stieb, watching him on the hill. Len, thoughts on comparison between the generations there with Mad Max versus Dave Stieb?
I think attitude really carries the day. And sometimes if you can kind of sort of, it's almost like it's an intimidation thing. I mean, if you go out there and you were very consistent in terms of how you hit your marks and
I lost him again.
He probably had such a good point too.
I know, that's it. So on that note, Jason, I'm going to let you go Len unlags.
Well, I think that the thing for me is I see a lot of similarities between the two of them. And so, what you've got is you've got two guys, like Glenn was saying, that dog and determination to win. Max doesn't screw around a lot. He and I feel like for the first time, if we're going to talk about the generations, for the first time, we're actually starting to see Max, start to rub off on the Jays staff. Like you're starting to see the Jays staff be more confident without being cocky. Like Fluharty the other day, for him to not come right out of his skin and do something donkey like a pump and backflip and all, he just stood there for a second, like holy shit, I just did that. And Kirky came out calm, and you have to give it to Kirk as well, because I think both, the Jays catchers on whole understand, Heineman and him understand that you have to keep everything calm. You can't go high highs until you really, really win the high highs. And just to watch him sort of pacing back and forth, like I got to do something, I got to punch somebody, I got to do something. And if you watch it again, Max Scherzer's coming out and he's looking right at him, and that's where he kind of he's like, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to strike the two best guys on their team out, because that's what you need. That's my only job, is they don't get hits, right? That's what I'm supposed to do, coach. Is that okay? So it was great to see that. And then again, to see him come in, it was funny. Buck Martinez was joking about, him saying, hey, why are you putting me in the 6th inning? I'm now your closer. But for him to roll out and watching them put the gum on Bassett's hat last night and watching Scherzer behind laughing about it kind of makes me, you know what I mean? I could see Dave Stieb being similar to that, where if you hear people talk about him, nobody was like, don't go near him. Like he was a good guy. People liked him. People liked him in the clubby, he was a good dude. He bled the team. He bled his job, and he chewed through a brick wall to win it. And so I think him and Scherzer would get along very well, especially if they were losing, it might be a different thing.
Yeah.
On a winning team, I think that they would do really well together.
But you brought up one great point there, Jason, that I want to pivot to, is we dug up a podcast, some Nevada podcast, I think from 2012, where they had Stieb on for like 14 minutes. So it was like 12 years old now. And Steve made the point, I think, which you're making, Jason, which was that they asked him, do you pitch to your strengths or do you pitch to the hitter's weaknesses? And Stieb was like, no, I pitch to my strengths, right? I know with what I've got, I'm going to go out there and take down who I need to take down. And if a Molitor, Brett, Mattingly get a hit off me, so be it. But that's the Scherzer type mentality. That's the Halladay mentality, which is to your point, Jason. I'm supposed to get these guys out. They get out 70% of the time, on average. So when we know, I mean, Dave Stieb didn't strike out a million guys like we have going on now, but the amount of weak contact he got because he knew that I can go 3 pitches in this inning and get out of it by pitching to my strengths. So I think this is the last of this generation. I think that we're seeing, the Scherzers, the Kershaws, and the Verlanders that were more aligned to the generation that's, Len and I would have grown up seeing. And after this, it's going to be like Chris Snell stuff every day where it's just like 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, and he's going to have 5 Cy Youngs, but he wouldn't have pitched more than, 1,500 innings his entire career. And you're going to go, man, we're putting this guy in the Hall of Fame because, he could air it out for 5 innings. Okay, boy, how about go 4 times through the order like Stieb, like Morris, all those guys, and let's see the Hall of Fame
and keep those numbers down.
Hold up, good luck.
Yeah, I think that the piece that we actually, over the last couple of weeks, funny enough, for one thing, we talked with Travis Snyder, Blue Jay former outfielder that was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we had a really good time talking to him. Yes, the lunchbox hero. So on that note, he was giving us a really great story of being in the locker room and trying to beat Roy Halladay there basically every day. And they're like, oh, we're here at 5 o'clock. We're going to be here. We're going to be ahead of everybody. We're going to game up. And Halladay's already like toweling off from his second workout. But there was that, like, don't talk to him. He's in the zone, those kind of things. That intensity for Halladay at least carried into the locker room. There was a little bit of a different piece to this whole thing with David Stieb because he actually was announcing for a while too. So there was just this, maybe it was different on game day, but there was that fact that it seemed like regardless of these things, even the stories that have come up since, that he was more in the game as a teammate than maybe some of these things. And I'm not dinging Roy Halladay. He just had what worked for him, and he did very, very well and carried a team on his back for a very, very long time. But it's a different mindset, different mantra. But the other piece to this conversation is we are never going to see 300-game winners ever again in Major League Baseball history with the rate we're at.
Unless they change the rules, no.
Exactly. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on, you mentioned the ending of a generation with where we are currently with Scherzer and that still trying to get some kind of a mold and like what you guys loved growing up watching Dave Stieb. But I think it literally is what you said, Len. It takes a change for Major League Baseball to have those players even in that mantra again.
But I don't even think it's that so much. I think it's you have to change the athletes back. We talk about Dave Stieb. Dave Stieb was an athlete. Dave Stieb could play 4 or 5 positions. If you needed him to, he could pitch. Obviously, he could hit. We're talking about specialists now. We're talking about guys who can throw the ball. Watch the fielding. Watch the new pitchers try and field a baseball. It looks like a monkey humping a football. It's unbelievable. They are so bad. They are so
got the visual.
They are so unathletic. And I mean, it blows my mind. They should all be bunting. The team should bunt 100 times.
I don't know why they don't
field anything.
The relievers.
Exactly.
Terrible.
The problem is now in youth baseball, right? No one cares if they get Tommy John surgery anymore because they're like, it'll be worth it to have a year plus of my career if I can still throw 100 miles an hour because I will get the big contract to do that. And the owners, they hate when starting pitchers become these big things because they have to pay starting pitchers a lot of money. You can, such like the NFL draft and the players, you can cycle through all these people and pay them nothing.
Running back,
create these specialists, right? So there's no incentive for the MLB owners to do what we've heard, which is, okay, if you don't let your pitcher go 6 innings, you lose your DH or things like that. There's just no incentive in the front end or the back end to make these changes. So we're just going to continue to see all of these 5 innings starting pitchers and then this churn of specialists. Because where's the incentive to do anything different? I don't see it.
And it gets even worse on that avenue. Is I don't know if anybody's watched anything from the Little League World Series. Jason, I know you're a coach. Liz, you got nephews just like me that are running around playing baseball. You guys got kids too. It's getting insane to the point that these 12 and 13-year-olds are having freaking Tommy John surgery.
No,
and it's are you kidding me?
Let's be clear. Let's be clear about that one psychotic family that took an 11-year-old boy and made him get Tommy John surgery. Made him.
You mean
those parents should be put in jail for child abuse, and that kid should never play baseball again. And it's not his fault. The people who we are dealing with at the bottom level of baseball, the U8s, the U9s, the U10s, are absolute psychopaths. This whole I could do 10 hours on this. This whole narrative has changed. Every single person, and for the Canadians, it's worse because hockey is up here and baseball is down here, and it's still psycho down here. Like the stuff I see with hockey, it is absolutely criminal what the parents of these kids do to these kids. They set these expectations, and then they've got these money-hungry, complete bottom feeders that lie to these parents and lie to these kids that this pay to play hockey and pay to play baseball is going to get them farther. It is absolute crap.
Yep. Could not agree with you more, Jason. And on that fact, that's the unfortunate reality that youth sports is no longer for fun for the kids. It's a business, just like unfortunately everything else in the world these days. So, but to that point, I wanted to mention that because it's honestly not terribly far off from some of these conversations where we're talking about with innings limits for major leaguers, these young prospects coming in and out of colleges and high schools and whatnot. But I do want to make sure we talk some current Blue Jays fun before we wrap the hour up here, and we are actually at 55 right now. So Liz, I wanted to give you a chance to talk for how much fun you had actually like exercising the demons, watching Mason Fluharty actually finally top that win out for us the other night. You and I could see us bantering from Twitter afar. And so I just wanted to get your opinion.
I thought I was going to die. I had watched the game with my niece and nephew who are 8 and 11, and they were screaming at the television with all the walks and all. And it was so bad I had to leave the room. I was so stressed out. It was Shohei Ohtani, bases are loaded, and he did it. And I would bring to Jason's kind of point where he just sort of sighed. Like, whoa. And I hated him for many reasons. He annoyed Fluharty. I carry a grudge with bullpen pitchers, relievers. Maybe I shouldn't, but I do. And so, we needed that win. I feel like if we got swept in that series, I would feel awful.
Yeah, that would have been ugly.
It would have been ugly. And so I got to exercise the demons of all of the doubt and fear I had and how bad I was going to feel the next day, because we also had a day off on that day.
That would be the comment that drove me nuts.
Yeah,
right there. Why?
To me, it speaks to why someone like a Dave Stieb would excel in this era of baseball. Because watching Ohtani go for those sweepers that Fluharty were throwing, I mean, Stieb would have a ball just with his slider and all this stuff because they're just all they're going for is the fence, right? All Ohtani needed to do was make contact in that, and he's just wailing away at pitches that are way out of the strike. And a hitter like him, it just shows the mentality of these three true outcome guys that are still. And we wonder why OPS is cratering, right? And these pitchers are just killing. It's not just because they can throw fast; it's because we're still not over that 2010 mindset of I got to hit 60 home runs, even if I have a 200 batting average. Dalton Varsho accepted.
Exactly.
Just get on base. Get on base. Get on base.
Yeah. I love that. And I think this is where we talked about this a little bit, where the Blue Jays have found a way to change the game at least a little bit. Their offense, regardless of what they do, they're not striking out. We are in the Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs kind of mindset a little bit at the plate. And putting the ball in damn play.
It's notable.
To Jason's point, let the defense screw it up. At least you put the damn ball in play.
Well, every sport's a copycat sport. So if this holds up and it's Milwaukee and Toronto in the World Series and we see success out of that, that's going to help teams go, we got to get rid of these, Jeff Hamiltons who are just, or these Rob Deere from our era, Rob Deere, Corey Snyder guys who are just going to hit
Gallo,
either bombs or nothing. And that's what we need. We need teams like Milwaukee or Toronto to be successful so that the other baseball front offices copy it, and then maybe we'll get back to a bit of an era of a balanced approach from a hitting perspective.
Yeah. So it's been fun to watch, and I can't say enough good things about watching this team right now. We did win that one that you were at last night, I believe. So you got to give us the inside scoop. What was the dome like watching the Cubbies get beat last night?
So I paid only $30 to go sit in the Gate 14 podcast. They had the Gate 14 podcast guys. They bought out a section, or they got a section from the Jays. So I figured, what the heck, it's $30. These ticket prices are just going to go through the roof. Is this happening?
We did that one.
Shapiro walks up the stairs. He's doing his thing. So, but it's really weird to sit in like the 14th row of the 500 level, because the way the stadium's constructed is still as an all-purpose. The sound gets really strange when you get that high and that up.
The dome was closed.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing it's a beautiful thing when the dome is closed and you get that noise. It's just perfect.
But it's a different sound from up there. But again, it was a great crowd. We did what we needed to do with that Ernie Clement bomb, and then held on for as long as we did. But watching I went down for the 8th and 9th inning and watched Varland pitch, and that's where you could see the energy when Varland was just whipping in 98s and 100, and people had no chance. They're probably going to try to convert him to a starter next year. The way they're talking.
Keep him as a closer, man.
But yeah,
he's an animal.
He could dominate for a long time. He's got that Tom Hankey sensibility where I'm just here to just slaughter you, and you're my next victim.
Yeah, terminate, dominate, strike guys out. But to that point, at the end of the day, the people didn't realize this from that trade, or they haven't completely caught wind. He is a Blue Jay until 2030.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
And with the chip on his shoulder too, because I don't think he expected to be moved from his home state.
There is that hometown and everything. So we got your cousin's brother's former roommate, Troy, Jason, loved watching the Ernie Clement home run last night. That was a nice little cherry on top of everything last night. Ernie's on fire. I love watching Ernie Clement play this game because he plays it the way it should be. He plays hard, leaves it all out there.
He's
it's
sort of like a Ben Zobrist kind of guy.
Yeah. And he's from my hometown, so I'm very happy that I get to say, hey, we got a guy on the Blue Jays now.
Craig, before we wrap and bounce, I got to ask the Stieb boys something. Where is Dave Stieb now? Is he like a rare Pokemon? Is there sightings of him? Like, where is this man?
Well, he lives out in Reno, Nevada. But
that's an odd choice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they went there because remember he had that contract that he signed in '85, where after he retired, like 5 years after he retired, he got one of those Bonilla annuities for like 20 years for $500,000. So why not be in like a no state tax area like Nevada and take advantage of that? But something that Len and I have talked about is what is going to help. Yeah, what is going to help sell Dave Stieb in the Hall of Fame if this front office doesn't step up and put a statue there, retire 37. We're just sort of hanging by a thread waiting for this 50th anniversary celebrations to see if they're going to do anything, because we need that, because who is going to cut the ribbons and all this when, God love Roy Halladay being gone, Alomar being persona non grata, right? Who is going to cut the ribbons? Who's going to be that representative for the Jays? And I know Steve's at a bit of an arm's length just in general, but if they were to retire his number and sort of move forward with, hey, let's bring him out to these things and make more of an effort. I think the Jays have just been so obsessed, this front office, with their present and the future, that's it's still just Ted Rogers as a statue there, right?
They don't really alumni. Like, I don't really see a lot of alumni things. There's no pictures up of old players. There's not really any. Yeah. They did. I remember maybe 5 years ago, they did a George Bell jersey giveaway night. And outside of Bautista, we don't really talk about our old Jays.
No, but to that point, we've had Travis on this show, Ricky Romero on this show, and they have said that the front office that is currently established with the Blue Jays treats their ex-players like gold. So they're like, when they're in town.
I've heard actually opposite. I've also heard opposite. I've heard opposite from other older players.
Those are the only two I know. So, and I just want to name drop Ricky Romero's been on this show to, everybody that's listening, 200 of you that are out there on episode 474 of the Jaybird Watching podcast. So on that note, Liz, Jason, is there anything else you would like to ask these two fine gentlemen about Dave Stieb? Going once, going twice.
Okay, okay. What do you got? Some cool stories. It's like, have you talked to Steve? Have you met him?
There it is.
Yeah, we met him during the first time we talked to him was in the parade because we had a sign saying name pronounced Stieb, Steeb, and we went up to it. As he drove by with Gruber in the car, he was like, "What is this?" And that's what it's always said in the Jays, handbook. The last name pronounced Steeb. So he gave us a big high five, and then when he came back in '94 for a signing in March, he was like, we've got video with him and us. But then in '98, when we were doing that Dave Stieb website and we did all of the, the games and we're interviewing him, that really was a great time to get to know him as a man. And then here is in 2001, when they came back and did a big thing, I've got this great video of myself and my 1.5-year-old son with Steve and I just talking back and forth for God knows how long. So, I've never claimed he's our best friend. He's our buddy and all of that. But it was nice to get some, acknowledgments from somebody that we spent so much time admiring.
That's awesome.
Perfect.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to open the floor to you two. This is what we do with every guest that we always have on this show. Shameless self-promoting. Talk about yourself. Tell a story. Whatever you would like. The floor is completely yours.
I'll leave it to the Leinster to take us home.
Yeah?
Yeah, go for it.
It's pretty straightforward for us. I mean, the reason why we did this is partly because we had some of the information. We'd put it together way back in the day. I mean, I think I mentioned it that I went to journalism school back in '92. And at that stage, I started this sort of crazy idea that I was going to do a log of every start he'd ever made. And that stopped. I mean, life. About 6 years later, when he comes out of Blake and I put together a website. Blake understood a little bit about programming and HTML design and so forth. And so now we were able to kind of formalize it. We used a lot of the same information. And then you fast forward another quarter century, get up to 2022, and we turned this into a Twitter account. And the idea behind it is pretty simple. It might seem highfalutin at the same point, but it's to get the number retired and it's to get him into the Hall of Fame, and we're still trying to figure out whether it's the chicken or the egg and what comes first, but we think both of them are achievable. The organization, as Blake intimated, needs to do something to recognize its best players, and maybe this 50th anniversary is a chance to do that. If they do, then he probably stands a better chance at getting into this era committee, which is convening this fall. This is for the 2026 election. And that cycle, it looks at people who basically made their contributions during his era. They list or they nominate 8 players. The way the ratio usually works out is about 6 players, position players, and about 2 pitchers. So the odds are long. But this is the time to do it, because as the years go by, you'll start to see more pitchers and more players come in who become eligible after failing to get through on the regular Baseball Writers Association ballot. So what we're trying to do right now is just to sort of mobilize a fan base that maybe needs to be sort of showing the way that this guy was historically and statistically the most dominant player that the team's ever had, that he's 1 and 1A with Roy Halladay for the best pitcher the club's ever had. One of them's in the Hall of Fame with very similar statistics as a Blue Jay. And you could argue that the reason why Halladay got in was because he continued on and did great work with Philadelphia for a couple of years. But the other you could argue is that because of the way the Hall of Fame electorate's going to have to start to work to get more pitchers in, it's right in his wheelhouse, because all these people now are starting to talk about peak and performance over a more truncated period of time, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it might be. And because of how good he was during that prime of his, he's got an excellent chance. But what we need to do is try to get that name and that case out there before people so that we can hopefully get him into that consideration. They're working on something right now. They've changed the rules for the committee. Part of it, we think, is because they kind of want to do away with Bonds and Clemens and Schilling and open it up to more palatable choices like Fred McGriff, who got in a few years ago. And to do that, that would be great, because that would sort of open the field up for our guy. But it could also be other pitchers of similar value, like a David Cohn or Brett Saberhagen or what have you. But we figure that his case, and I could go into the detail, but maybe it's a little late in the broad, it paints a pretty good, pretty compelling picture for him.
So like and follow us at Dave Stieb Today on Twitter, Blue Sky, and on YouTube as well, at Dave Stieb Today. Please like and follow, and then we'll we'll all work together to get this guy number retired in the Hall of
Okay.
Fame. Thank you,
Yeah.
Craig, Liz, Jason, for having us. Thank you so much. It was really a great time.
Yes, guys, thank you so much. It's been fun.
Well, you didn't have to sell me, but you sold me. Well, much appreciated, guys. Obviously, we're going to keep chit-chatting. We will make sure we keep retweeting out your guys' wonderful content because it is fun to ensure that Blue Jays fans get some awesome. There you go.
Sorry, man. I forgot to get back to you.
So, but to that point, I showed you guys right before the show. This guy's hanging here. This is one of the actual, I didn't tell the rest of the stories. I didn't want to ruin all of it. This is one of the first baseball cards that my dad actually ever gave me.
We've used that
1985 jumbo tops. So
I know they're beautiful.
Yeah, they came out really good. I got the whole team set. It's one of the first ones he bought me back in the day. Really cool stuff. And actually, it might have been to the old exhibition stadium when I was probably about 4 or 5 years old. So same idea. Just getting into baseball, loving every minute of it. So
what a ball.
But beautiful ball. Including the wonderful story we got from Jamie Campbell about the Dave Winfield Seagull.
Jamie's the right man to talk about it. He would know it.
Yeah. He tried to take the Seagull. He was like
going to take it. Yeah.
Parts of the story. the way now I got to tell the story before we end up wrapping up because I think we lost Jason to golf. So he's on the show. He's goofing around with us, and we were talking about the Seagull. And he goes, the Bat Boy brought it over and like kind of set it down before front of him, where right where him and his buddies were sitting right up on the wall. And the thought caught his mind is like, I should take that as a collector. That's going to be worth something. And the rest of the story plays out. And he goes, the only reason I didn't took it was because he was worried about what his mom was going to do the next morning, finding a dead seagull in the refrigerator or sitting on the counter.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Liz, I think you got to tell him the stupid baseball card joke that we got Jamie with after that.
Wait, which one?
With the seagull. We were talking.
How now Topps cards will put like a piece of a baseball bat in a card, and they could have just put made seagull, relic seagull cards, official MLB exploded dead seagull. Topps would do that for sure.
They would have been all over, especially now with the Fanatics empire that is in all things collecting these days. So. All right. Well, thank you very much for the still almost 200 of you concurrently listening to this show. We greatly appreciate you hanging out with us and Dave Stieb tonight on the show. It's been very fun. Great stories. We appreciate it. Makes you hit it up. Obviously, go Blue Jays. We will be back next week, and we got to figure out a night because I will be at Billy Idol in New York City because I'm just going to get my 80s rock
song
out.
last year. It's a good show.
So we got to figure out what night we're going to play next week, but we will let you all know in the very near future. We do have to do picks to click, and I guess I'm going to let one of these guys do the piece. And then Liz, I found something new for us to give away.
That's cool.
It's a wall hanger.
I like that.
I found it at the what's it called? Thrift store. This is going to be a new wonderful thing for us to give out for a Blue Jay giveaway in the very near future. So make sure you follow us on the Twitter or whatever you might be at Birdwatching GC. But the last thing we got to do, I almost forgot, Liz, we got picks to click. So who is going to have the best performance in Toronto Blue Jays baseball this week? But last week we had Bo Bichette, Nathan Lukes, Vladdy, and Dalton Varsho.
Did I win?
I'm going to take the vote of these two fine gentlemen on who, out of that quadruple there, actually might have had the best week.
Can you name them again for us? Who was it again? The four?
Bo Bichette, Nathan Lukes, Vladdy, and Dalton Varsho. So this is since we recorded last Wednesday, so the last week in Toronto Blue Jays baseball.
Yeah, Varsho. I'm trying to remember where Varsho hit the home runs when they were in Colorado. Was it game one? I know he hit a bunch, but
it technically wouldn't have applied. They were done with that series before we aired. So this would have been the Dodgers in the one game against the Cubs yesterday.
Okay.
Yikes.
Vladdy's pulled his average up to 300.
Yep.
But then Bo has been something. I don't. Well, okay. I think we'll eliminate Lucas. I don't think it's going to be him. Although I really like his game. I love those guys who don't make the majors until they're almost 30 and then they turn into useful players. What a neat
monster player too at this point.
Vlad got on base 3 times last night, so I can't remember. And he had that home run in the 8th inning in LA that last game. So I'll go with Vlad. What the heck?
Len, you good with that? I'm going to take that he's good with that. So that actually
I
was
had a
the
lag
guest
thing right there with you guys, so I may have missed something crucial. But otherwise, I'm going to go with Bo.
Ah,
Okay.
Yeah,
So Vlad and Bo were the guest spot in your pick, Liz.
did I win?
So because it's really technically a tie with the two of them voting. Do you think you won with Bo Bichette? I think you kind of did. Or
I think so.
Vlad, honestly, is a great pick too. But Bo was on fire in both those series, so I'm gonna go with Bo. That's gonna get you another win. That is still allowing you to have a commanding lead over Jason, me, and our guest spot.
I pick the best every week. I just pick the best player, and then I win the contest.
So guess who you can't pick this week? Just
Bo.
saying.
I can't.
So on that
note,
note, gentlemen, Blake, I'm going to let you pick the guest spot. Len, I'm going to let you pick Jason's spot because Jason had to duck out. Blake, who do you think is going to have the best week in Blue Jays baseball between today and next Wednesday when we would record?
God, I wish Shane Bieber was starting for us in the next week. I would have got out 11.
That's tomorrow and in Buffalo.
I know. All right, who's going to have the best week? Jeez. I'm going to stick with Varsho. Why not?
Alrighty.
He's gonna have, if you played his numbers out over 660 at bats this year, those would be
Slightly
some
nuts.
insane numbers. So he was hot last night too. So I'm gonna go with him. Why not?
All right, Len, I'm gonna let you pick Jason's spot next. Who do you think?
I'd love to say George
Swami movie.
Springer, but I know we got to
start his rehab assignment. He's going to start his rehab assignment, so maybe next week.
I know. No, you know what? I'm going to go with I kind of like Addison Barger.
There you go.
I just think he's going to have one of those random big games.
Yeah.
Bam Bam Barger.
Yeah, he's cute.
That's
He's got
Bam
good
Bam
hair.
Barger.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Vladdy because he's the best player on the team.
Yeah, there it is. And then I'm going to take Bo Bichette because I desperately need a win when I only have 3. So, and we've been doing this every week. So Liz is winning currently 8 to Jason's 5 to my 3, and the guest spot's 3. So guest spot guys and me got some catching up to do.
By the way, I don't know if it's Jake to do this, but should we maybe sort of jinx the Cubbies right now? Anybody see the actual score of this game?
I do. I'm seeing it. I'm watching it. I'm very stressed about this. I would love to jinx the Cubbies.
Okay.
You're gonna say it. I'm not gonna say
Voodoo.
it. Like
Voodoo.
But
yeah.
just get your jinx tweets ready, guys.
Yeah.
Who's pitching for them anyway?
Are they that impressive?
Horton.
Yeah. Like what is going on there?
Cade Horton.
Yeah, he's actually been a good youngster, fine for them too. So on that note, now I'm officially
they're 5
done.
innings
Party
right
people.
now.
There's
that's
six,
all I
top
know.
of 6. Yeah, it's top of 6 right now.
We got to go drink more beer and watch the end of the game.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much again, guys. Appreciate it. Everybody. See you next week. Make sure you hit us up at Birdwatching GC and our friends here, Dave Stieb, today on all social media. Enjoy.
Hi, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. And go Blue Jays. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Jay Bird Watching Podcast. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch at BirdwatchingGC and our YouTube channel. If you want to support the show and get extra content, please consider joining to our Patreon at patreon.com/birdwatchinggc. Go Jays, go.
Woo!